So like I said, thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Stephen Laverne. I'm a strategist at Simpson Scarborough. I have been working with William Peace University since the start of our engagement back in the spring semester of 2019. So it's been just over a year and a half now. And it's just been such a really great opportunity to work with the university. And I'll walk you through a little bit of that process of how we got here today in just a second, but I want to be sure to introduce my colleague, Katie Schwindeman, who's a senior designer at Simpson Scarborough. She's been working on the brand since we moved into the creative phase of the project just over a year ago. And so she's been the lead designer on all things William Peace. So just to give you a little bit of background before we actually dive in, excuse me, and everyone can see the screen, which is great. I want to just make sure that you have this background so that way you know how we got here. Like I said, we kicked off the project back in the spring semester of 2019. That started with myself and a couple of other of our team members coming to campus and meeting with a bunch of internal stakeholders, from current students to faculty to staff, leadership, and even members of the board. And we had really great conversations about what makes William Peace University, what makes you you, to help inform a number of market research instruments that would help really measure in the brand. And so those conversations, took place over the course of about a week. We took all of that information that we learned from the discovery sessions, as well as information that we garnered from doing a brand audit of the university, including the website, materials you were sending to folks, both print and digital. We also conducted a competitor audit of 6 of your closest competitors, so that we had a nice cross-sectional view of what was going on, not only at William Peace, but within your competitor set in particular. Like I said, we took all of that information and we built a quantitative online survey, which we fielded with traditional undergraduate prospects, SPS prospects, parents of traditional undergraduate students, current students, faculty and staff, and alumni. So if any of you were around in late spring or early summer last year, you were invited to take that survey. So thank you again for everyone who did participate in that. We had more than 1,500 responses overall, which was really, really great and gave us nice margins of errors all the way around all of those different audiences to really help get some really important data that would help inform not only the brand, but really important brand benchmarks to test, to track and monitor the brand over time that you'll be able to replicate now. And so in addition to that quantitative online survey, we also conducted qualitative in-depth interviews with high school counselors and business and community leaders. So we did about nearly 25 high school counselors and about 25 business and community leaders. Some of those folks are now sitting on your board, so they weren't on your board before. So always exciting to know that, everyone was really, really engaged. We came to campus, I believe it was the early fall semester last year, and presented all of that research. It was a pretty robust research document. And all of that research information that we got was really, really helpful. And, part of taking the research and building out a brand strategy from there is part art and part science. We were able to take we were able to see what was really appealing to prospective students and what really garnered their interest at both levels, also parents, and see how that lines up with how the internal community described the university, both authentically and where you want to go in the future. Because a brand really is important, not just for today, but also for tomorrow. If we had created a brand that only described who the university is today, we really would have been doing a disservice to the university, because a brand really should give you room to grow into and live up to, because the brand strategy that we created is not should not run the lifespan of a particular campaign, but should really outlive that. Brands in higher ed typically last anywhere from 10 to 20 years, depending on how nimble and responsive and reflexive the brand is, which is really, really important, and just another reason why continual market research and asking and replicating the study and asking certain questions and pulse surveys are really important to gauge the effectiveness of your brand. So we took all of that market research and we brought it to life in a brand platform, in a brand strategy that we'll talk about here, and I'll show you here in a few moments. But that brand strategy will really guide the marketing and communications materials moving forward, and should help inform strategic business decisions as well. That it's not your strategic plan necessarily, and it's not your visioning and goal setting, but it helps inform those things, which is, as we all know, really, really important. And it helps with consistency as well. So from that brand platform, we brought the brand strategy to life in two distinct creative ways. And last fall, and early into 2020, we fielded a creative testing survey. So if you were with the university within the past year, you were invited to take that survey, where we went out to the same group of folks that we went out to the quantitative online survey with. So traditional undergraduate prospects, SPS prospects, parents of prospective students, current students, faculty and staff, and alumni. And, we asked more than, do you like the colors or do you like the photography? But we wanted to gauge how much individuals felt like the creative aligns with the strategy. So that way there's truly a through line of the research, strategy, and creative in all of in whatever we developed for you all, because we feel research is really important to be able to make those decisions. We received over 1,200 responses for that creative testing survey, which was just really great response. And it helped inform the decision-making of which creative concept to move forward with. So, just to ensure that the creative concept was not chosen in smoke-filled rooms, right? But that everyone had the opportunity to participate in the selection. And what you'll see today is that creative concept really coming to life, which we're really excited about. We then developed some brand guidelines, which is the core of the core of the training today. So we'll walk you through those, and that will really just help you all tell a consistent story, and not just verbally, and not just by writing about it, but also visually as well. So that way we can bring everything together under one consistent look and feel for the brand. And then the last part of the final part of that initial engagement are these trainings, which we've been doing over the past couple of weeks. We had time with specific writers and designers, a cross section of individuals across campus, as well as we have a few other over the course of, or another one over the course of the next couple of weeks. So we're excited to dive into this today with you all. I would say if you have any questions, feel free to include them in the chat in particular, or just interject if you have anything, and we'll run through it. And we'll be sure to allot some time at the end for any questions or answers related to the process or any of the things that you'll see in the deck here today. So this is really just a running table of contents of everything that you'll find within the presentation today, and then when you access the guidelines, if you haven't already. And so this copy over here on the right hand side just really explains the importance of why do we have guidelines, and why are they so important. And so to summarize some of this, brands are really living, breathing things, and they're increasingly hard to control with social media and the website and pamphlets and brochures and direct mail and digital advertising, right? There's a lot of ways that people are learning about William Peace University, and conversely, the thoughts and opinions that they have about the institution. So with all of those different channels and mediums of communication, we want to make sure that everything is aligned as closely as possible. So that way we're all telling the same story that will really help us reach the goals that we've set forth, whether that's in enrollment or in giving, or just strategic partnerships that we know are really, really important, not only for students, for student outcomes, but immersive learning, and just the health of the university. So it's just why it's really, really important for us to be on the same page here. And so the guidelines really are designed to ensure that every communication, both as big as a view book or a billboard on the side of the road, or as small as a simple tweet, that they're really authentic and cohesive reflections of our brand. I'll walk you through the strategy first, then we'll go through the verbal and the visual. So our strategic goals were really to ensure that, you know, as things change and perception shift and priorities become clearer over time, that we're still making sure to address some of the really important goals that I mentioned just a moment ago. And so the first is just to be sure to tell a concise and consistent story that connects the legacy of the university to its future. We know that you have a really rich history, but we want to be sure to always be connecting it to what's happening today and how that's going to affect students tomorrow. We want to build upon the university's mission to prepare students for careers in the organizations of tomorrow, to communicate an active, hands-on, nimble, and responsive educational experience. We want to emphasize our strengths: immersive learning, internships, our major city location, diverse community, student-faculty relationships, to improve our reputation as an institution that delivers successful career outcomes to its graduates, right? We should all know that outcomes are our prospective students' #1 priority in the college decision process. You know, always coupled with outcomes and costs, right, are up there up top. And so we can really, from a messaging perception, really help tell that outcome story. We want to leverage our Raleigh, leverage Raleigh's economic, cultural, and professional opportunities to strengthen perceptions of the university's relevancy and value. When we first joined the university in this endeavor, Raleigh was obviously a really, really important part of the brand. And it still is an important part of the brand, but how we have helped evolve that is not just talk about Raleigh for the sake of talking about how cool Raleigh is, but to really connect and show how Raleigh is important to the university and how the university is important to Raleigh, and the benefits that your Raleigh location provides to students. That we're not just saying that, you know, Raleigh is a cool place to live, but you're going to get hands-on immersive experience in Raleigh through your experience at the university. Our brand platform, I will walk you through it here. Just to give you a little bit of background about what all of these different elements are, I will walk you through it here in just a second as soon as I can find what I am looking for. So just 1 second. So if we start down in the bottom right-hand corner, with the foundation, and hopefully everyone can still see the screen. Okay, great. Our foundation are a collection of strong yet non-differentiating aspects of our institution. They're core to who we are, but not lead messages. So these things came up as really, really important when we asked, you know, about William Peace University, especially internally, but externally might not have, are not going to work as hard for you, for prospective students or parents, right? So, but if you took one of these things away, you wouldn't necessarily recognize the university for William Peace anymore. So that's the history of advancing women, safe, small, beautiful campus located in a vibrant metropolitan city. expert faculty who mentor and truly care about their students, and close-knit campus community that values and celebrates diversity. If we move over to the left-hand side, our personality words, these are really how we think of ourselves and consequently how we want the world to think of us. Personality words specifically help us establish and maintain a consistent tone throughout our communications. So when we are writing that tweet or drafting a view book, right, what we want to make sure is that these types of personality and tone words are coming up, and that you can feel them through whatever tactic you might be writing about or that you might be talking about. So that's connected, which involves the ideas of engaged and involved, encouraging, which encompasses challenging and supportive, innovative, ideas of strategic and risk taking, and then passionate, which really also includes these ideas of active and creative. So you get a good sense of the type of emotion and that we're going to hope to evoke throughout our brand, and especially in how our marketing and communications comes to life. Our pillars, these pillars are really, really important for the marketing communications function. They further define our competitive advantage throughout through our three biggest strengths of what we do better than other institutions, what we believe, and what connects people. So for that excel, what we do better, we combine classroom learning with professional real-world experiences to provide every student with dynamic hands-on opportunities so they are ready for an ever-changing market. Engage, what connects us. We immerse our students in the professional, cultural, academic, and social opportunities of our Raleigh location, broadening their worldview so they are prepared to work, live, and thrive in a diverse world. And then endure, what we believe. We meet students where they are and take them where they need to go, pushing them to be better and do more, so they have the skills and confidence to meet any opportunity and face any challenge. So once again, picking up on that Raleigh example before about how Raleigh's positioning within the brand was really more just about how great Raleigh is. So now in this middle pillar, you can see how it's positioned, that it's, you know, talking about immersing our students in those professional, cultural, academic, and social opportunities, and how that really helps broaden worldviews to help them for today's diverse world. So just starting to see how those things have been shifted and repositioned to really help the institution both authentically and aspirationally. And all of that sums up to our brand promise, which presents our strongest and most unique position within the market. This, importantly, is not a tagline, but rather a simple distilled phrase that forms a foundational point for our strategy. So I say that, you know, it's not a tagline in the sense that you won't necessarily see this on materials or in communications. It might be, but it's not designed to specifically live like that. And in fact, the pillars themselves are also not externally facing language, meaning that's not language that you will necessarily see on the website or within other mediums and tactics. Rather, it really should help the marketing and communications team and folks around campus, all of you, when you're thinking about, you know, how do I want to position something or talk about my program, right? That we're talking about everything, and that all communications are laddering up to some combination of stressing these three pillars at the highest level. You're able to then support those things with various proof points to show how you claim it. So our verbal section, in terms of writing about the brand, our strategy lays out the factors that distinguish us from other institutions. And the next step is to use the information to inform the way we talk about ourselves. The verbal guidelines, including the narrative, voice, and tone, should guide all messaging initiatives and provide a cohesive direction for how campus communicators should tell our story to the world. And the really important thing that I want to stress there is, you see it said how campus communicators should tell our story to the world. All of you on this call are campus communicators in some form or another. You all talk to individuals and people outside of the institution about the university. So it's really important that you have this type of information as well, so that way you feel equipped to help answer key questions. The narrative in particular is an important thing. The role of the narrative is to really lay the foundation for writing in a distinct voice, which I'll read here in a second. You'll be able to see that come to life, as well as to inspire messages we communicate going forward. So there's going to start to be things in here that are more tonal and aspects that we wouldn't recommend taking one of the paragraphs and just necessarily throwing it on something without any rhyme or reason, but to hopefully get some inspiration to use certain phrases or use words to help your communications. And no matter who or what we're writing about, our voice should stay true to the big idea encapsulated here. So I'll read through it just so you have that sense. We've done it all. We've all done it. Said one day I'm going to do this, or someday I'm going to do that. At William Peace University, our students live in the moment. But what does that really mean? It means that the first step in pursuing your passion is to get involved. Take it all in. Get your feet wet and your hands dirty. We believe that the most valuable learning experience is one that's tangible, not hypothetical. One that's hands-on, nimble, and responsive, not just theoretical. Being here means learning from an entrepreneurial and creative faculty who revel in turning curiosity into confidence and passion into purpose. It means leveraging our location in the heart of downtown Raleigh to gain practical experience in your chosen field. It means you won't have to worry about the transition from college to your career, because here at WPU, they're one and the same. We encourage our students not simply to act, but to be, not just to imagine, but to do. We believe in welcoming change and embracing uncertainty. We promote a learning environment that's active, adaptive, and vibrant, where students can build their own community and feel comfortable being who they are right now. Because at William Peace University, your someday starts today. So like I said, you can start to see how there's more tone and emotion than you might have seen in the pillars, right? That these are, that this is really a guide and inspiration for words and phrases that we might use. This voice and tone, I'm not going to read through this. This is a really interesting page. If you really want to dive in, I'm going to note throughout the presentation areas that you might want to come back to or bookmark or print out for yourself. But these are just really helpful kind of tips and tricks and techniques to help. Pointing out some of the important ones are being clear and concise. A lot of the times at institutions, we want to talk or write in a way that's very academic to show our credentials. And there is a time and a place for that, especially at conferences and different, when you're speaking with faculty members at other institutions, or you might be speaking with partners, right? But specifically when you're talking to prospective students, there's the ability to speak in a way that they'll understand, right? So not getting too marketing jargon, but really write clearly in a straightforward tone. And another important one is knowing your audience. A lot of the times at institutions, we hear, folks that in different departments, whether they're on the administration side and student affairs or for a certain academic program, we hear a lot of make a brochure for my program, right? And that's really important. And there's a time and a place for brochures, but we want to make sure we know who the audience is for a certain, for something like that, right? So if we're going to create a brochure for something, we want to make sure, is the target audience prospective students? Is it, a traditional undergraduate or SPS, or is it for a partner institution? So just being sure that we're being really strategic and outlining who our audience is. A lot of the times we want to talk about everything in the kitchen sink in a certain communication. But one thing we want to really try to do is within every tweet or brochure or headline or blurb review, that we're saying one thing and we're saying it well, that there's the opportunity for, down message to talk about more things and support, but there should be, a clear idea about what it is you're talking about or why somebody should be engaging with your communication. And then finally, the last 2 points of being human, of backing it up, being human and be relatable. Now more than ever, we know how important it is for empathy and respect and understanding and just this feeling that we are all, regardless of where we might be in the world or or in the state or within Raleigh, that we're all feeling certain shared emotions. And so, backing up our messaging with stories about students, about faculty members, about alumni, that really help tell why these things matter and the impacts it makes on students' lives, and even faculty. And just knowing that, we can be relatable, that we can use humor when it's appropriate. We can write in a way that empathizes with students. And no one expected this to be our year or the world that we're living in right now. But it's the reality. And so just being responsive and nimble and flexible to that. Our marketing pitch, these are things that you might see in places like an About Us segment, potentially on US News and World Report, different things like that. Important information, not going to spend time on it today, but just know that there is a marketing pitch in here. This is another place where I would bookmark it if you have it digitally, if you have the guidelines digitally, or print it out if that's your preferred method as well. These elevator pitches in particular are presented in a more conversational, casual tone that are really designed for conversations that you might have at a conference, or you might have at a college fair, or with your neighbor, when they specifically ask you the question or just ask you to tell them about William Peace University, which I'm sure every single person on this call has been asked at one point or another. And I'm sure we have all given really great responses. But now we have an opportunity to tell that in as consistent of a manner as possible. So this is something that I would say, if there's one big takeaway here for all of you on the call today, that this is where I would spend most of my time committing this to memory. And no, you do not have to memorize this word for word, but I encourage you to really have the flow and really make sure you're hitting on these big ideas here. And then you're able to take your own experiences at the university and talk about how a student who has been able who has benefited from the things that you're talking about, or how a coworker of yours, how you really see this coming out, and then how they've helped a student, right? So I'll read through the standard one, and then the conversational one is a little shorter, so I won't read through that because it essentially says the same thing. But so if somebody says, tell me about William Peace University, you can say, William Peace University is a nationally ranked institution in Raleigh, North Carolina. We believe learning should be hands-on, adaptive, and nimble, with career preparation built in from start to finish. Our experiential approach meets students where they are and prepares them for careers in the organizations of today and tomorrow. Nestled in the heart of Raleigh's downtown area, our university's culture is as vibrant as the city that surrounds it. Our faculty know not only their students' names, but their interests and aspirations, and are dedicated to helping them achieve them. William Peace students enjoy the tight-knit community of a small university and the opportunity of a growing, flourishing city. The result is a graduate who is not only an expert in their field, but is motivated, capable, and career ready. So once again, a good opportunity to take time and start thinking and committing this to memory. There's a number of social media descriptors in here that we won't read through, but know that those things are ways that we're able to tell a more consistent story on social media as well. I'm now going to hand it over to my colleague, Katie, who I introduced at the start of the call, and she's going to walk us through the visual section.
Hi everyone, I'm excited to share the visual part of the William Peace brand. Stephen's mentioned this for the previous two sections as well, but the visual should feel like it is the conglomeration of all the strategy and research that has gotten to this point. So I'm not going to go into too great of depth today, but I do encourage you, if you're creating any sort of visual pieces for William Peace, to reference the guidelines, and if you have any more detailed questions moving forward as you start to make things, to always feel free to reach out to marketing and communications if you don't see something in the guidelines to answer your question. So the first section here is all about the logo. We didn't touch the visual identity, the logo, at all, so this should feel familiar to you, but in the guidelines, we've laid out all of the different forms of the logo and where we might use it. We have primary logo, these different almost secondary versions of that primary logo where we change the orientation, depending on the space you might use it in. We have the initials mark, which we only want to be using in situations where the name of the university is prominently displayed as well. So a good example of using the initials mark might be in a favicon or a website, or in our social media profile picture. These are more tertiary logos. We have the School of Professional Studies logo that should be used, obviously, for School of Professional Studies pieces, and then the university seal, which should only be used in specific formal instances, such as diplomas. We've laid out some guidelines on clear space and minimum sizing. Clear space just allows for a consistent birth of area around the logo on any sort of piece we might do. This just keeps the logo always being used a consistent way, and also making sure it's always used in a legible way. And the minimum sizing has a lot to do with legibility, in terms of we don't want to use the logo in too small of a size that that type isn't legible. So we have one size for when we have the name of the university there, and another size for when we're just using the initials mark. We have two color variations. We have a full color version of a logo and a one color version of the logo in black or white. And these are just a couple of examples of where you might use those color instances based on the background you're placing it on, just again to ensure that it's always legible and accessible. We've also included a number of do nots. These have a lot to do with just making sure we're not disrupting the consistency of the visuals of the logo. So we don't want to do things like add a drop shadow effect or stretch or skew or anything that makes the visuals inconsistent across different items. So moving into the color section, these are when things are going to start to feel a little bit less familiar, when things are going to be part of the new visual brand. That green should feel familiar, though. That is the William Peace green, and we haven't changed anything about it. What we've merely done is added a secondary palette and another green here. If the dark green is our consistent and familiar WPU brand, that bright green is the vibrant step into tomorrow as we move our brand into a new and exciting, vibrant way. We also have here in this primary palette, we have a number of neutrals there on the right, our black, and then our two grays. And then we have the white on the palette as well, just because we do want to emphasize that the William Peace brand should use a lot of white space. It should be bright and airy and give viewers a chance to breathe. I did see a question come up. Yes, the PMS is the Pantone number for each of those. We've included the Pantone. CMYK is for any print instances where we're not using Pantone colors. RGB and hex can both be used in any digital applications. This is the secondary palette. You'll see we've repeated the greens, but we are also adding a blue and maroon and salmon combination as well. These are the parts of the brand, the new visual language, that are the vibrant, active, and creative part. You heard those words on the brand platform, and we're hoping that this is how you can really see that start to come to life with these additional colors. For each of these colors, we obviously have a darker version and then a lighter version. We're mostly using those together. Like if you're using the dark blue, you're going to use the light blue with it. But these also play nice together. And on the next page, we break down some example ratios on how we might use color. And so we really want to emphasize that the greens are still it. William Peace, the main colors, we're still really leaning on that green. And for particular audiences, we're really still leaning mostly on that dark green. But our secondary colors can come into pieces as more accented colors. So on the top here, you're seeing audiences such as faculty and staff, alumni, community members, external audiences. Our greens are really going to lead the way, and there might be some opportunities to pull in those accent colors lightly. for maybe more internal audiences, younger audiences like our current students and prospective students. We can get more vibrant, a little bit more exciting by using those accent colors a bit more. And you'll see here too, we're using that bright green a little bit more as well. These aren't hard and fast rules. You don't need to make sure that, like, for a faculty piece, you want to be using 50% green, but they're more just sort of a reference point and a gut check. Moving into photography, we've laid out a couple of examples here of how and when we might use photography. We've singled out engaging portraits, beautiful environmentals, and then active lifestyle shots. Our portraits and our environmentals really help viewers to feel like they're on campus, they can see themselves here, they're a part of life at WPU. And then our active lifestyle shots are really about proving the fact that our learning environment is active, adaptive, and vibrant. So pictures of students in the lab, people at work that feel dynamic, that feel active, those are the things we want to capture in our lifestyle shots. Something that's an important part of the brand is these, what we're calling over-the-shoulder photography. This is supposed to be a visual representation of that today part of our brand concept. So when we're looking over the shoulder of a subject, looking out at it, and it may be their learning environment, that hands-on environment, students can feel, viewers can feel like they're part of that. These can be used on their own, but we think they're most effective when they're in combination with a portrait or a lifestyle shot that then gives viewers the context of what they're seeing. So in some applications, and you'll see in tactics later on, we'll pair that over the shoulder shot, and then next you'll see the face-on view of that person in the photo. We're using duotones as a textural element in layouts to ensure legibility with type, but also they're just visually exciting and they add interest to pieces. So we're using some darker duotones, which are the combinations you're seeing on the top of the page there, and some lighter duotones there on the bottom. So duotones kind of straddle the line between photography and graphic elements, and we can use them as background elements as well as just an effect on photography. We have two brand typefaces. We have Stolzel, which is the sans serif on the left, and Bennett Banner, which is the serif typeface on the right. Both of these are what we would call contemporary fonts, but they have a different vibe to both of them. So Stolzel is a bit more casual, a bit more progressive, and Bennett Banner, in that it is a serif, feels a bit more traditional, a bit more academic. So we're using those in those two different ways. Both of them can be used for headlines, subheadlines, some body copy. We're using Stolzel when our body copy is a bit longer, and we're using Bennett Banner when our body copy is a bit shorter, such as pull quotes. These are the system font alternatives for each of those brand typefaces. These are only to be used in instances where we cannot use our brand typefaces, such as anywhere in Microsoft Office or an email signature. We're combining Stolzel and Bennett Banner in a way to kind of represent the dichotomy of the university's position somewhere between traditional and progressive. So the way we do that is in a headline, you might see certain words emphasized by a switch in typeface. And so there's some details here on how you might want to do that just from a sizing perspective. We're using underlines as a graphic emphasis element, and we're actually only underlining Bennett Banner. It's not to say we can't underline Stolzel if it's like a hyperlink or something like that where we have to, but from a graphic perspective in headlines, we're underlining Bennett Banner just to add some emphasis and visual interest. The type bars that you see on the bottom, those are used behind headlines, behind text boxes, on top of photography, just to add a little bit more legibility and contrast. This is an example hierarchy of how we might use those different typefaces in a layout. This is just a starting point and it's not prescriptive, but just how those sizings and how we might change the font to be an effective hierarchy. Now getting into graphic elements, the first thing I want to talk about was grid lines. Grid lines are a graphic element that was inspired by cartography and maps. They add visual interest, they're a background element, but they're also a compositional element in that we can use them as a background, we can use them as borders, and we can also lock our type, our photography, and our patterns up to the different lines in our pieces. And speaking of patterns, these are the patterns. We have 3 different types. We have a hash, a wave, and a dot. When we have a big, wide-reaching brand language like this, it's good to set rules. And a rule we've set here is that we're only using these patterns in these 3 brighter versions of our colors. So in that green, the blue, and the salmon. And we're using that in its full opacity, whether it's on top of a lighter version of our colors or a darker version of our colors. And then finally, with graphic elements, we have symbols and frames. Our symbols and frames are also only used in those 3 colors. Our symbols are just little graphic elements that add visual interest to pieces, arrows that are directional, these concentric circles in the top middle that we can almost use with photography to like tape photography to things. And then we can use these boxes on the left to either add symbols or type. You'll see in the brand training deck itself, we're using that in the lower right corner to hold the page number. So there's a few different ways we can use those. We've shown them here, the boxes in green, the circles in blue, but that's not to say that the boxes can't be blue and the arrows can't be green. We just want to make sure it's one of those 3 colors. The frames are just graphic elements set equidistant from any direction off a photo. We've included the guidelines here for athletics. We haven't adjusted anything here in athletics, but we wanted to make sure this was able to be referenced, the logos and its different versions, the athletic font, and then the athletic color palette.
One thing that's important to note about the athletics is obviously the colors are going to look a little different than they do for the new brand visual language. And so that's important to note that your institutional kind of colors and whatnot are going to not necessarily always align with what is happening in marketing and communications. And so it's okay. I don't want to alarm anyone that you need to go print new jerseys or anything like that. That's not what we're saying here, that it's okay that these things do live a little separate in the look overall.
Yeah, now we're just going to go over a couple of example tactics that were made during the conception of the brand. These are all fake, they're not real, but merely give a reference point to how we might use these different elements all together. So the first up is an example view book, and it has a sort of half cover here. And you'll see what I spoke about earlier, where we're seeing the over the shoulder and then the person in the photo revealing the context. We also have an example spread here. Here we're using those blues and those maroons. And a view book is a perfect example of where we can start to use those secondary colors because it's a bigger piece. We know there's still going to be a lot of green throughout. Obviously, the view book is the green. But as we start to get into the depths of the pages, we can start introducing some of these secondary colors. And they just add variety and warmth to the palette. We have some example light pole banners here. Again, you're seeing how we might use those colors across a couple different pieces. And then we have some example Instagram stories. So here you're not only seeing that over the shoulder context kind of photography again, but you're seeing how copy might really show the someday and the today, the tomorrow and the today. So it's more than career counseling, it's your first interview. This is more than a classroom, it's a research facility. This is more than an internship, it's your first day of work. And then finally, we have a digital ad. This is specifically for SPS and just showing how for SPS, we're probably just going to use the greens. We're going to lean a little bit more heavily on our greens versus our secondary palettes.
Great. So just wanted to walk through one thing quickly, and that's the pitch breakdown that we had listed that I had read through earlier. And I just wanted to be able, I wanted to assure anyone who might say, you know, it's great to have this pretty creative and nice sounding creative, but how does it really align to our strategy, or how does that strategy align to, you know, make sure that everything connects? So we wanted to clearly draw the lines of where things are coming from as kind of a proof of concept, essentially, that, you know, when we say we believe learning should be hands-on, adaptive, nimble, and our experiential approach, right, that's really being driven back from that excel what we do better pillar, about meeting students where they are, preparing them for careers. Our faculty not only know their students' names, but their interests and how to help them achieve them. And then finally, about the tight-knit community, the small university, right, that we're really dialing into the endure pillar there. And then finally, this idea of nestled in the heart of Raleigh's downtown area, a university culture as vibrant as the city that surrounds it, and an opportunity of growing, flourishing city, really laddering back up to that engaged pillar. So when I had mentioned earlier about how this pitch in particular is something that I encourage you to take time with and really try to commit to memory, it's because we're really leaning into those three pillars a lot here, as well as bringing the tone and personality to life in a way that is what we feel is really strategic for the university moving forward. So all of that being said, that's a lot of information, and we just went through a lot of pages of the guidelines really quickly. So once again, I encourage you the brand guidelines have been posted on your internal server, which Monique had sent out before this training today. So I encourage you to be sure to go and bookmark that or print it out for your own reference. And just to reiterate that marketing and communications in particular is going to be your first best resource to reach out to help. And so, you know, the first few times that you might be writing about something within the tone and feel of the new brand, or even designing something within your specific unit or department, to try to run those things by marketing and communications to just make sure that to have a second set of eyes on it and another perspective, as they've been working really closely with us over the course in terms of Monique and Safi in particular for the past several months, but then obviously with Colleen over the course of the past year and a half. So I would definitely encourage you that a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So we're all in this together. I will now pause, and I'll open it up for any questions that folks might have, or any comments that anyone might want to make. Feel free to either use the chat, or if you'd prefer to just to unmute yourself and talk. I think everyone should have that capability. So whatever works best. Alrighty. Well, unless a question comes in, I just want to thank you all for your time this afternoon. It's really appreciated. I know we're all very busy and have a lot of things going on. And so we do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. And for those of you who participated in the surveys throughout the course of our engagement, once again, we really do appreciate that. And it just helped to create this. And I know that the university, especially, even those at the top are very appreciative of your time and efforts. And I also want to give a special shout out. I saw some familiar names on here. So if we met with you during a discovery session, or if you served on the brand advisory committee throughout the course of our project, a special shout out there and thank you, as I know that was pretty time intensive as well. And it's just been really great to work alongside of not only the university, but the individuals within the university as well. So thank you all again for your time today. And I just hope everyone, as always, stays safe and stays healthy, and have a good rest of your day.